Hey, everybody. Welcome to another DOM webinar. We're excited to have you today. This particular webinar, this series has, or this subject matter with SGE has been one of the most popular ones that we've had based on registrations, based on the questions we've been getting. I would say between this and GA4, having the most interest. And I don't know if that's because people are excited or scared or a little combination of both. But as you've been hearing, we've certainly been talking about it with SGE, with Search Generative Experience, that this is going to be a major change to Google with both users and to people that are practicing SEO. So we're excited to have you here. We're excited to talk about all the things that you need to know. First, just a quick little background on DOM, and then we'll get to it. By law, I'm required to present this information to you. So who we are, we've been in business since 2006. We're a digital marketing agency. We are one of Google's premier partners, and we are have been in help clients all over the world. I apologize, having a little trouble with moving my screen. And as you know, we don't always, uh, uh, some of us don't speak and type and do other things, don't multitask very well. I'm one of those people, so I apologize for flubbing this. But more about our credentials in terms of Google, that's more on the ad side versus the SEO side. But we worked with a ton of different brands, a ton of different industries. And if you think about who we are month to month. So no client signs a long-term contract with us unless it's something that they're interested in. Yet, even though nobody's locked in, we do have an 85% client retention rate, which at least on the Google Ads management side of things, numbers we get directly from our Google reps, is 2 to 3 times the industry average. Um, Moving forward, our net promoter score is currently at an 82 versus the typical digital marketing agency average is a 53. So that means that our clients are 54.5% more likely to refer us to other businesses than our typical or than our peers are. Um, as I mentioned, we've sold to over 150 countries, or we've helped our clients sell to over 150 countries around the world. We've personally helped clients on every populated continent. Those are the areas in blue. Our services range from everything from search engine marketing, so SEO and Google Ads and PPC management, all the way through analytics, website design, and the other areas that you're seeing on the screen. And I would encourage all of you that if you want to see more about us, don't take our word for it. Listen to the people that we've worked with. And so those reviews that you see on Clutch, that you see on G2, that you see on Google, over 80 reviews, what people have said about working with us, what they liked, what they didn't like. Now, having said that, I'm very, very excited to introduce you to Billy Wright, who will be your presenter today. A little bit of Billy's background. He is an SEO maven. He's been doing this for over 20 years. He is our lead digital marketing strategist here at DOM. Basically, if you were around in the days when there were geosites, websites, that's the type of stuff that Billy was working with. That's how long he's been working on this. And so he has a ton of information. We've done a presentation like this for our clients. We have updated even more because there's been so many changes about SGE that Billy's very excited to talk with you about. So as we get into the presentation right now, I will just encourage that all of you can ask questions at any time. If you want to use that Q&A system, that's where you can leave comments. If it's something like, hey, I didn't understand that and I just want to get clarity, we'll go ahead and address it during the presentation. I'll bring it up to Billy. If it's kind of a more general question, we're going to wait to the end and we'll address it then at that point. So hang in there. We promise we'll get to as many questions as we can. And with that, Billy, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me turn off my camera while I talk here for a bit. Okay. Let's get ready to rumble, guys. Fasten your seatbelts. This is not a normal algorithm update. Google SGE represents a groundbreaking evolution in search technology, redefining how users interact with search engines. This presentation will introduce you to Google SGE. It is a pivotal innovation reshaping the future of digital marketing and your presence in search results. Google is always changing. Algorithm updates have significantly influenced SEO strategies and website rankings. Google has made thousands of updates per year. In 2021, they made over 5,000 algorithm updates alone. And that requires also constant realignment. From Panda to Hummingbird, every update brought new challenges and opportunities for both webmasters and SEOs like us. This one, though, is different. SGE may be the biggest update that the search engine giant has made in 20 years. So why is SGE so different? Unlike previous updates, Google SGE introduces AI-driven interactivity and content, setting it apart in its approach. SGE's introduction marks a departure from the traditional normal algorithm updates we would see. It focuses more on user experience and less on keyword density. Instead, the quality, experience, authority, recency, and the importance of the content you create for your sites will have the biggest impact on your search result rankings. So what is SGE? Google SGE, or Search Generative Experience, is an AI-powered feature designed to enhance the search process through dynamic content generation. And that means that, SGE is marketed as creating a more intuitive and engaging search result field, uses AI to create summaries and insights directly within the search results so that people don't have to click into your websites to get answers to their questions. And to make that even more clear, so instead of showing your content, Google will begin to summarize it and deliver their own response. And they may or may not credit you for your content that they have pulled in to formulate that content. Right now, Google returns what they call rich results, or what we call rich results, also known as the featured snippet, or you may have heard of position 0. That's the very large result right at the top of search results for many queries. This is the result that Google thinks is the most relevant, related to, or the most important for that query that's submitted by a user. In this example, on the left, you see Abraham Lincoln as it is today within the typical normal version of Google. But within SGE, it's very different. With all new AI-powered overviews, Google SGE provides succinct, relevant summaries at the top of search results, offering quick insights and information that Google itself has pulled together. To the right of that info, they will then frequently show the top sources they scraped to build that content, but not always. Right now, there's no guarantee they will. And on the left here, you can see it is quite a different set of results than what they had previously for Abraham Lincoln. In addition to showcasing their own content, SGE is remarkably personalized. While search results do fluctuate throughout the day normally today, Google SGE searches may fluctuate within seconds. Now, also, everything about the user matters. The user's location, their behavior, their past search history, their demographic, all their personal data influences the websites that you will see over someone else. And also the actions you take within the web matter. So if Google SGE frequently shows content to a user and they don't click on it, or if that user decides they don't want to follow or they want to ignore that content, it's going to impact whether they see that site again. And when I say constant, I mean constant. On the right here, we have search results for the term forward break kits. These are taken by a user just 30 seconds apart, same user, same PC. Images seem almost identical at first glance. However, when you start to dig into this, you see the language at the top is slightly different, and the fifth product in both sets is completely different. But in some other cases, these SGE results might be even more drastically different, with giving you different information as an answer. In this example, we have two results 30 seconds apart for the same user for how much does a wood deck cost. While the top text is similar, the last sentence within each has been changed slightly, and the information given below varies with different summaries that are being delivered to a user. This may seem trivial, but the differences between the two also involve the difference in sites that Google is pulling and promoting as the sources of their information. So looking at that in more depth, the images on the right here show the sites that Google is showcasing as an authority on the subject for how much does a wood deck cost. And while the first result Google is promoting is the same in each of these searches, the second and third have been shifted and have different resources. This shift in both the rich results and the constant change of these sources mean website owners are going to need to shift their own strategies to compete properly within this new design. There's going to be some big changes. If SGE is fully adopted and pushed out, the introduction of SGE will lead to changes in how websites are ranked and displayed in search results. Your organic search visibility could be significantly impacted as SGE prioritizes its own AI-generated content over the traditional search listings. In addition to visibility, websites will also experience changes in their traffic patterns and click-through rates due to the way that SGE presents the information within it. And this is important to remember. As SGE provides information more upfront, users might click through to websites less frequently, which would then impact your website traffic. Here's an example of pizza place near me. On the left are localized results for me. I live in Squirrel Hill, a neighborhood in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If I look at this within Google SGE, I get a different set of results with different descriptions and different imagery. Websites that have optimized for Google rich results in the past might see a different impact from SGE, given its distinct approach. Sites relying heavily on the rich results traffic should anticipate adjustments in their visibility and user engagement. And I don't want to scare you with this next stat, but currently it's expected that websites that obtain most of their traffic from rich results focused content could see a loss of 20 to 75% if they don't adapt to follow Google's recommended practices for SEO or for user experience. So what matters then moving forward with SGE? Big one here, authority. If you provide information to users, you have to show why you're an authority on the subject to be relevant within Google SGE. Experience, the site speed, the ease of use, the time it takes to make a purchase, how quickly a user can get what they're looking for, all of that now matters towards your rankings. And relevancy. If you write content unrelated to what you sell, make, or provide, it's unlikely to continue to bring you traffic. If you're not the ideal result for a user, there's no reason for Google to show you. Authority is everything. Beginning with SGE and also, already happening now, if you provide information to users, you have to show why you're an expert on the information, who at your organization is the expert, and how they became the expert. Websites that do not provide this information and credibility are likely to experience a loss of rankings, especially as Google shifts to show only information from sources that they trust with actual authority. It's important to remember, you must give Google a reason to believe you over your competitors when you deliver information on the web. Experience is also everything. If your website is difficult for a user to navigate, if it's slow or cumbersome, or if finding the products you're looking for is complicated, all that will impact your rankings and traffic. Can a user see reviews of your products or services? Can they find pricing information? If a user can't find that stuff, the Google bot will not find it either. And if using your website is complicated or clunky, your rankings are going to be complicated and clunky as well. You have to show why you are relevant. Google SGE wants to deliver the most relevant, likely to be clicked on and enjoyed content to a user. So you have to show Google SGE why you're relevant, why your website is more important and ideal for a user than your competitors. Writing content just to grab search traffic that's irrelevant to what you're actually selling, just to get traffic in, will no longer net you the rankings it once did.
Billy, I just have to say this. My wife and daughter are pumped that you chose a 49er here for this. So thank you for that.
You can, yeah. Excellent. And also, it is important. If you and your competitor, you have to think about this from Google's perspective. If you're providing the same product or service, why should Google care about you more than your competitor? Why would it show you over them? Why are you more relevant to the user? Why do you have a better experience for them? Also, moving into SGE, images are even more important than they have before. Within Google SGE, the images that they include alongside written content will have significantly more importance than they do today. In some ways, they're going to work as kind of miniature ads to help drive clicks into your content. Within the suggested results, Google utilizes the featured images and the open graph images in a page in a uniquely new cropped size that kind of differentiates the results from they are today. It's important to begin looking at images as a way of advertising organically why users should be clicking into your website within SGE. So when is this happening is the big question. And Google has not publicly stated when SGE will go live in its public form, or even if they're eventually going to go live with it at all. It's being tested right now. But the feeling within SEO and digital marketing is that it's going to happen pretty soon. Some sources have speculated it could go live within other changes to the search engine results within the early part of 2024. But, as Google is known to do, it is unlikely that they will make any announcement before they just push it out to the global user base. There are some additional changes also coming to search results over the next year here that will have significant impact on the way your websites perform and the way they may gain visibility and traffic. One big one coming up, there's upcoming changes to Google's core web vitals. They're going to take into account moving forward how long it takes for a user to be able to do things within a website. So not just how long does it take for your site to load, but is there a delay in adding something to a cart? Does it take a while to check out? Does it take a long time to load a video on your site? All of these negative experiences with these sorts of times will eventually impact your rankings within the search results, even though someone's already on your site. Also, and this is a scary one for a lot of people, Google is testing functionality within beta to allow users to leave notes and comments on every website within Google Search. This will allow users to leave notes, reviews, experience, information, comments, feedback on literally every website for every other user on earth to view or relate with. On the right is an example. I left a test comment. I've been testing this for a while now. You can just leave comments about how you feel about TV programs listings in Google, and people that are signed into the beta right now can all read them and they get indexed. And this could have a significant impact on websites that do not prioritize their user experience, as someone can leave a review directly on your site about how they did not like the way it performed. So how is DOM approaching Google SGE? We have been working to craft strategies to align with these best practices for the post-SGE world in search. Our SEO plans, our operations, they're all aligned with the needs of our clients' websites and all websites during the shift. And while we cannot predict everything that's going to happen, we have worked for years to implement best practices and standards that should work for a long time to come. There may be additional needs that webmasters have to meet these challenges, and we have the resources within web dev, content creation, authority building, everything to help guide your site to success within Google SGE. But this is a reminder, this is all in beta right now. We're making these recommendations based on what we know and what we expect today. Things will change, but we will add to and adjust our recommendations as Google makes updates themselves.
Awesome, Billy. Thank you for that. We'll go to questions now. I cannot stress enough how quickly these changes are coming. And to Billy's point, will things look exactly like they are today? Probably not, right? Google makes it changes to its algorithm more than once per day, right? So things are going to constantly be in flux, and they may release things in piecemeal, or they may release whole cloth. But I was reading a lot of things on vacation. Billy was probably annoyed with me sending him questions and information about changes I was making last week, like with the comments feature, like with some questions that Google was coming out with in terms of timing. I think what's clear, though, is that the AI genie is out of the box. You're not putting it, or I mix my metaphors, out of the bottle. We're not shoving that genie back into the bottle. And so the question, even in some conversations, was, is this still going to happen? People trying to parse through Google statements. It's clear that Google is going to move forward with this. It's just a question of how it's going to be. So we'll start turning into questions now. We have some prepared. We see a few people, including nice comments on the 49ers. So thank you very much for that, Angelin. But we will move forward with questions. Please throw them up in the Q&A at any point, and we will start getting at them. As we do that, I just want to point out one thing. We'll leave this up while we're here. If you are looking for help, if you would like a free audit for people to look at your website, We can do one just in general for SEO, but in particular, taking a look at what are those things that we expect to be impactful for SGE. We can take a review of that and give you a free consultation on that. It's pretty low. It's not a hard sales pitch. It's literally giving you a ton of free information based on that. So you can click on, or sorry, you're watching this live. You can type in that link, or you can scan that QR code. It'll take you there. With that sales pitch out of the way, let's move on to Jennifer's question first. And Billy, this is one I hear a decent bit. How do we get access to the beta? How can people play around with that themselves?
Sure. Within Google, there's a section called Search Labs. And if you go through the process, you can get added in to be whitelisted to test it right now. We actually have a guide on our site right now within our article on SGE that explains in actual details, step by step, how to get in yourself to start using it.
Thank you. And so, Billy, and on that note, if you go to our website, so directom.com, and you just click on our blog, it'll take you there. It's one of the most recent articles. You can filter by SGE. It'll take you there as well.
Yes.
So thank you. Also, a question from Jennifer. What is the magic authority number? I love these questions. What is the magic authority number we need to have to be recognized by Google? So that's maybe the first part of the question. Then the second question, how do we increase our authority?
Yeah, I don't think there's any kind of magic authority number we could ever give you, but what we can give you is what your competitors are doing or who's ranking above you. In a lot of ways, sometimes SEO is as simple and authority building is as simple as doing it just better, one-upping what they're doing. A lot of that is making sure that Google can trust the content you're creating, that it's unique, that there's human beings behind it, that they understand who those human beings are. Any of that is a work towards building better authority. To have the best authority overall, it depends on the field you're in. In some cases, you might need to have specific biographies of every single person who created content on your site. If you're in healthcare, you might need to show that those pieces of information you're giving have been medically reviewed by a doctor or physician. It really depends on what you do, how you do, and the content you create. And always, always do it better than the people you're competing against.
Yeah, thanks for that, Billy. I think that's the key, right? Is if you want to benchmark, start by looking and seeing where your top competition is, and that gives you something to shoot for if you're not above them already. Billy, do you have, on that note, I know we're big fans of SEMrush, but is there a particular tool that you like, or one maybe that's out there that's popular that you don't like to check authority?
I don't have one publicly to share right now, but we can also create a little guide on that we would recommend.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then from Ron, how does this change relate to BigCommerce or Magento?
Wow. Well, so that's a great question. I think you need to take a good hard look at the CMS you use for e-commerce to understand how well does it function for a user. I have a lot of experience with Shopify and BigCommerce, some Magento, lots of WordPress and Kenneco. It really depends on the CMS. BigCommerce is built in a way where it's very effective at getting people in to make a purchase quickly in some cases, but it really depends on the surrounding code that you put on top of that as part of your design and your template. So it really is like kind of site by site kind of situation that you have to take a look at. Your CMS should be effective at getting you good speeds. It's really the design on top of that a lot of times that really impacts whether you're showing a user a good experience or not.
Well, thank you. From Gina, and by the way, if people have follow-up questions, go ahead and throw those into the chat, and we will make sure we can dive in deeper on any of these as well. Gina, can you talk more about best practices for images?
Yeah, so images are important. A lot of people right now think of images as kind of like a side part of content creation. They create all the words in the copy first, the title, the page title, and then they ask a designer to fit in a couple images, maybe, or maybe a header image. Moving forward, your images should be considered a piece of that content. So that content that you write, there should be images that reflect what's going on in that content. If you can have words within those images that actually can drive a conversion of some kind or drive someone to be more engaged with that piece of content, that's going to be important because those things will show up with your site within SGE. You're essentially creating advertising within the content for your own content.
Awesome. Thank you. this one from Ian, for consultants, what would be the top 3 things you would have our clients do today?
Oh man, authority one is number one. That's the one we push the biggest right now, I think, is that if you're creating content, you have to be showing Google why you're creating it. So, maybe you're creating it because you want users to read it. Maybe you want users to have advice taken from that. You have to show Google why is it important? Why should someone care about this versus your competitor? So getting who wrote that content into the site, who are they? What's their background? Each individual article should have an individual author. That person should also have a background filled out within their domain that shows everything they've written, where they're from, where they went to school. If they have LinkedIn, it should be showing all that to show that they're a real human being. You're in a world right now where everyone thinks they can create content with AI. And so the world is getting filled with all this content that is just versions of other versions, et cetera, et cetera. Google wants to know, did a real human being make this? And what is that person's experience? Do they have experience, expertise, and authority? And are they trustworthy? That's the Google EAT statement there. All of that is important. So 3 things: authority, 2, page speed. Make your sites faster. The faster site, the better you are at getting conversions, the less likely you are to drop visitors and drop conversions. And 3 is make your experience easy. If someone gets in and they don't know what to do, they're going to bounce no matter how good your content is.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I can't say it any better than Billy did, but I just really want to emphasize the second point on site speed. And Billy really hit the right point, which is about conversions. It absolutely impacts your SEO, but we're all in this to make money, whether we're looking for a newsletter sign up or we're looking for somebody to purchase something on site or for a lead or a download or a free demo. We have these sites for a reason. And every little tiny incrementally slower that your site is, you're going to start dropping conversions. It's especially important on the mobile side of things. The one stat that Google came out with was 48% of people, if they come to your website on their mobile device and they don't quickly find what they're looking for, they will leave and never return. So nearly half of all people will never return to your site. And you work so hard to get them there in the first place that you just can't afford to give that up.
Attention.
Um, All right, from anonymous attendee, and thank you for putting this in. How do we suggest we adjust or how do we suggest that we adjust our strategies to adapt to these Google SGE changes? So what maybe do we think that people should be doing differently or put more emphasis on or less emphasis on than maybe they've been doing and having success with for the last couple of years?
Sure thing. I think one thing that maybe a lot of webmasters and marketers kind of have as a SEO sin is that you create content just to create content a lot of the time. And I think having a blog just for blog's sake on your site is no longer something that will be beneficial for you moving forward. When you create content now, you need to be creating content that has a purpose. Everything should have a purpose. Everything should either be ranking you for something, driving a sale, or driving a lead, or an opportunity that's going to bring in people again. Like just was talking about, keeping people on a site, getting them coming back. When you create blogs just to put news out there, in a lot of sense, you're not really giving Google anything to work with. You need to give them meat that they can feed off of, that the bot can really crawl through. That also helps you get rankings. It helps you get pulled up within these SGE results. I think a big deal is just, revitalizing the way you create content. Everyone needs more content. Everyone has very lean pages a lot of the time. Sorry, I'm saying this is a broad generalization. Most websites are lean on content. When they do have a lot of content, a lot of it is within long form blogs and things like that. Your product pages should be having lots of content on them. Your product pages should show why you should buy this, especially if someone else sells the same product or the same type of product. Why should Google care about your page over theirs? You should have reviews within your content. You should have explicit information about the product and how it can be used, how it has been tested. All those things are important and something that are left out of a lot of websites today.
Billy, 2 things just to emphasize on that, and thank you. Number one, I think people forget that that page the person's coming in, they're not always coming through the homepage, right? You're trying to get a particular page to rank. So when you're talking about why should people care? Why should the user care? Why should they pick you over a competitor to purchase or to fill out a form and become a lead? Understand that they might just be coming into that page and they're making that decision there. So that's why it's important to have all of that. And the first part of what you said really resonated for me, because I've seen, uh, we've made recommendations to folks to blog. I don't know how many times over the years, but we also always try to say, don't blog just to blog, right? Don't just put content out there because you feel like you're checking a box. It's not going to help you out as part of it, and frankly, you will hate your life. So really make sure that you have things that you want to say they're adding value, and all of you do. Sometimes we'll run into people that'll say, I'm in such a dry industry. I don't have anything to write about. False. You're an expert in your domain and you have information you can share with people that they will gobble up. So doing that, just think through like what people care about in the conversations you have, especially sales conversations are always great ways to find things to write about. A follow-up question, I believe, from the same person. What does this mean for our prior SEO efforts? So is there anything that maybe they've done in the past that could be hurting them moving forward, or any other commentary around that?
Yeah, without auditing what your prior efforts have been, I would say that in general, if you've been using our best practices, we've been future-proofed for a while with a lot of these things. Things change all the time. SEO requirements change all the time. Stuff you've done years ago may no longer benefit you. It may not harm you though as well. The goal is that you're always shifting and adjusting as things shift and adjust too. And I know that's a lot because Google is always changing the algorithm, but as long as you're always, following best practices, you should be never shooting yourself in the foot somehow. If you're, taking some rando Russian websites SEO tips and you're running with those, that may not be the way to do things. But if you're following best practices, you're following what leaders in the industry have done, the things that we recommend, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good note. I think what your example, there are ways that you can cheat the system that work, and there are people that work. If you hear like black
Yes.
hat SEO is the common term for this, that people that are really good with it and they're successful, but they're constantly kind of staying on top of it because something that works for a little bit, Google's eventually going to crack down on it.
Yeah.
And so those people are always constantly changing and staying in step. That's why sometimes when you hire them, and then you stop working with them, then your site crashes afterwards because they've been staying kind of in front of it. So if you are following these general best practices, you should be in good shape. So another question, I'm sorry, I should have answered this at the beginning or should have shared this information at the beginning. Will we get these slides or recording of this webinar, please? Absolutely 100%. I might ask the team to see if they can edit out where I butchered my beginning when I was trying to multitask with my keyboard and move slides forward at the same. But yes, we will make sure that everybody gets a copy of that. So thank you for asking that. All right. I love this question. I love all of them, but this question, and I think this is pure speculation on your part for now, Billy. But what do you expect? So Terry's question is, in the respect to comments everywhere, curious what kind of process, if any, will be available if a competitor or someone starts flooding your website with inaccurate, disparaging comments.
Yeah. I don't want to, so not to give away too much of how the sausage is made, but we're testing that right now. And I've been testing that. And under a couple of accounts that I've gotten whitelisted to try it, I've been able to successfully leave comments that are straight up just disinformation on websites that we're using as a test. Google has reviewed the content within those comments and has done nothing about it. They've gone live, they're indexed, anybody could see them if they went to that site. So I don't want to sound negative, but I think that, right now it's the Wild West. And at some point, there's going to be a system where they review these better. They're not just using a straight AI screen through to see if someone's using a URL or something like that. At some point, there'll be a way to flag these things and get them reported. As it is right now, though, in beta, it's not good. And so I think, if you have a bad user experience on your site, not even just your competitors, but thinking about from just what can you control, a bad user experience on your site is likely to result in bad comments. And that's something that's going to have to be taken into account when you're doing your marketing, when you're working on your CMS, everything. At some point, it'll change. I'm sure that they will see that this is a terrible mistake and they will not do it. But for right now, it looks feasible that it could happen and go live to the public within the next year.
Yeah, that's scary. But I think realistic view of it. And um, I could see it becoming, or I'd be curious, Billy, your thoughts on this, but I wonder, could it become something like a review system? And this relates to Scott's question, so I'll ask that here in a second. But could it become something like reviews where um, outside of somebody just purposely going out and being malicious and then having a bone to pick and continue to spam you, putting those cases aside, is it one of those situations like you're going to have to just work extra hard on getting people to leave comments that
Yeah,
are neutral or positive? I mean, could this become a situation where it's almost like, I don't want to call it link building, but akin to link building, where you're trying to get some of those comments left to counteract any negative and to put yourself in a better position?
absolutely. I think that, not to get too in the weeds with this, but I think that what we're going to see is a system of trust about those people leaving comments. And I
Mm.
think people that leave comments that are helpful or voted up frequently will then have a type of popularity within the system where getting a comment from them is considered like, similar to link building. Like you're getting these positive endorsements across the content you've created. Um, right now, what we see is that when you create these comments, and even for people who are not in the beta, they're getting indexed. So to test, I created comments where I used a specific phrase. Google approved it, put it onto a website as a comment, and then later, anyone who's not logged in can Google that phrase and find it within the search results. So I think there's an opportunity here to use this as a way of content creation, review creation, those kind of things. But it just remains to be seen as to how well it's moderated.
Thank you. I- it'll be interesting, and I think the Wild West analogy you gave is really apt because I expect people are going to game the system to get clout, if you remember
Yes.
that old platform, and to raise up, and it almost becomes an influencer thing where it started off innocently and then it became its own money making juggernaut on its own, and then selling, and then not having to do it. It'll be really interesting to see how it evolves. Um, to Scott's question that I had mentioned, how will online reviews be evaluated for authority?
That is a very good question. I don't know if you're familiar right now, but Google has already started to shift the way they look at reviews for websites. It used to be that, you had a business, they took into account only the reviews that were listed within your Google business profile. Now that score that they're using uses reviews from a variety of sources. I think that we're going to move into a world where they are very stringent as to what they trust. I think that they're going to have a lot less trust in certain types of sites where you can pay for visibility. I have concerns about the Yelps of the world and how they're going to fare moving forward. Um, but I think they're going to take into account the trustworthiness of who has created that content too. So taking a review from a site which is known to do well, with writing actual reviews of products or websites where they've tested things, those are probably going to be seen as highly valuable. Whereas just 5 stars on a random blog is not going to be as valuable.
Um, you sort of addressed this one. I'm going to skip down a little bit. I'm going back to comments. But I want to make sure. But they might have been asking the question also either before you talked about it or asking particularly from the business's perspective, like
Mhm.
you do with reviews. Shelby asks, will businesses have a chance to respond to the comments?
As of right now, there's no way to respond to a comment. I'm assuming that at some point they will have that they may also just incorporate threading where they allow people to have a conversation within those comments. As of right now, you can only upvote or like a comment. You can also view the page of the person that created all the comments. So back to the whole popularity thing, this is an opportunity for Google to, one, create a social network within the biggest place that everyone goes, which is the search results. Number two, I think it is an opportunity to eventually sell a service of some kind revolving around comments. Because, of course, if they're going to create a product, they create a product to sell.
All right. I have to take us off course very quickly. I promise I'll bring us back.
Okay.
I'm having flashbacks of Google Plus right now.
Yes.
And Google basically, every time it's tried to do a social network, has failed. But this one, because it's tied to the search results, feels like, depending on how they implement it, this could have more legs than what they've done in the past. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I believe so. The most successful social network that Google has ever created is YouTube. And the reason YouTube is successful and considered a social network is because there's money behind the things that are going on there. So, anybody can leave a comment in YouTube, but now you can have paid super comments where you pay $5 and your comment goes to the top. I think that we are just a ways away from that kind of system where the only things that ever succeed are the things that make Google money, and that functionality within YouTube is making them a considerable amount of money. They're definitely going to expand that out to other places.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I don't even think, and you're right, I don't even think of YouTube as a social platform, but it absolutely is. Uh, and that was something they bought because they couldn't create it on their own. By the way, have to give a plug. My favorite, for those of you who've been around search for a million years, and you remember Yahoo and Bing back in its previous names, uh, there was this. I still have never figured out why it was created. It was a rap battle of each search engine against each other, personified. So Google was personified by a guy wearing a beanie and a Google search on a scooter, having an old school rap battle. It went away, like the website died, and so I bought it just because I loved it. And so searchenginerapbattle.com, I can do nothing with it. I just pay money for hosting every year on it. If you want to check out these old school search engine nerdy rap battles, searchenginerapbattle.com. I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. Going to Sandra. Is a good SEO focused blog still helpful? Or were you saying that in general, blogs are less valuable for SEO with algorithm changes?
I think just preface this, it depends on what you do, what you're trying to do, what industry you're in too. But a good focused SEO blog should be beneficial if it's done correctly. And the entire point being, you should only write something that's beneficial for you. So if you're writing to a subject that you have a lot of knowledge and expertise on, and you're answering questions that users are going to ask, you're giving them proper information, and you're also then giving them something to do besides read. So give somebody content that they can read, but then also drive them into that funnel. So they're becoming a lead, becoming a conversion. Yes, they're valuable as long as they're written with a goal in mind, and that goal is informed by data, by SEO.
Thank you. I'm going to skip down to somebody that has a related type question around content. Anonymous question. Hello, if it's a news site with tons of outdated posts and articles, I suppose we need to clean up even more of our content on site for SGE. Any best practices for blog posts in this situation?
Yeah, tons is a rough word. That's a pretty vague word. It really depends. Some of the big hitters in the industry are doing wild tactics where if a story is always developing, say that there was a car accident that happened on a Monday and there's new information about it on a Tuesday, they're releasing a new article with a new URL that says it is an update to the old story, and they're giving you a brand new page for the algorithm to rank. It really depends on how much content you're creating and how frequently you are creating it. If it is stuff that is legitimately newsworthy and it changes every day, you should be creating content at a more rapid pace than something that's maybe important once for that week and isn't really important again until the next week. So there is a recency and a frequency kind of part of the algorithm, and it really matters, regarding what the content is and how often that content needs to be updated to be newsworthy. So I can't give you a really clear answer there. It's recency is important. If you created content in December of 2022 and it was about, how to do your taxes in 2023, or it was about how 2021 went for something with a keyword, you're not going to continue ranking for that moving forward. You need to update that content and get it always rolling out and fresh. Google wants fresh content. They want fresh content with authority that has the user in mind.
And Billy, maybe let's related to this, because cleanup can mean different things. I'm thinking through conversations I have with folks. A lot of times when a site's being redone, people, when they say clean up, they'll mean I want to just get rid of it and let's kill off the page. And sometimes there's legitimate business reasons for that, right? It's a product they're not offering anymore, service they're not offering anymore, or it's really completely different than how they talk about their values or things now than it used to be. But generally, I believe that our recommendations are keep as much content as possible, but update the content as makes sense. But can you maybe, and again, I know we're speaking high level, but can you maybe talk about that philosophically on cleaning up of like when it makes sense to kill off versus when it makes sense to just update, at least from an SEO perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of things that could surround that, but I think the one thing that I would, preach to most people that is an old school SEO adage, the cardinal rule of SEO is never delete, only add. So if you can add something to a page that is maybe outdated to fix the outdatedness of it and to add recency, do that. If you can add a new piece of content that's better than the one you had before, do that, and then link to it from that old piece of content or redirect that old piece of content. There can be things you do regarding reputation management with that. So say you had a product that had terrible rankings, but you have a new version of that product and it has better rankings. Don't just delete the old page. You need to delete the old page and redirect it, or take that old page, add new content about how it's been updated and reformulated. And now you have this great 5-star version of that product. Here's a link to it. So that surrounding content that you've generated on the web and the sentiment that you've created changes, and that people can see the chain between those things. But yeah, in general, if you don't have a lot of resources, the rule is always don't delete it. Just add more or add better.
Thank you for that. Jennifer asks, is SGE going to prioritize e-com over non-e-com sites?
That is a really great question. It seems to have some kind of focus towards e-com, but I think that one thing we didn't go into in this document that we've talked about anecdotally is that there may be a higher focus on e-com, but there's also going to be a focus on who has the better e-com experience. So the brake pads situation here, there were AutoZone, et cetera, selling all these brake pads. But one thing you notice within the SGE results is that it's using one of those listings it's giving you is for Home Depot. And not because Home Depot is a great auto parts seller, it's because they have a great website that can also sell those parts on it. So instead of all these automotive sites coming up now it's who has the best purchasing experience, the best checkout experience as well.
That's really interesting. Putting aside the experience within e-com, one of the things that if we think about like old SEO or things we've looked at in the past, it's been about Google trying to figure out what the user intent is, and so it'll prioritize e-com or non-e-com depending on the individual query. So the example, there's a client we had in the past that really wanted to rank for pool paint, and it was a challenge, and we got them to a certain spot, and they were like, we're going to struggle here because you're not selling pool paint. And
Right.
if you look at all of the top spots, those are all e-commerce players selling pool paint, and they were the #1 spot that wasn't selling pool paint. But do you expect with SGE, Billy, that that's going to be the same thing, that they're going to be looking at user intent, and depending on what the query is, that it still could prioritize e-com over non-e-com or vice versa?
I absolutely think it'll focus on what the user intent is. And I think specifically, like say house cleaning services. You have house cleaning services on your site as a service page, and there's no way to check out or to order those or to get a quote within that. And then your competitor has essentially a product service page for house cleaning services. they're definitely going to be much more likely to show that e-commerce version of that page because it's taking someone to their intended result, which is to get those services, not just to learn about them. I think SGE is very good at understanding the intent of the content and who was written for and what the user's intent. So is something informative or is it selling? Is it commercial? I think that's going to be a big factor within the way things rank moving forward.
And this is a great question. I don't think we had the graphic on this particular presentation. It's on one of the blog posts. We can certainly share these with everybody. Can you talk through? So it says, will organic results in general have less real estate on the first page? And can you speak to how this will impact where the paid ads are going to go?
Yeah. So not to scare you, but what we see so far within testing and what other people have seen is that, yes, there will be less organic results on the first page of Google. Not only will there be less organic results, but there will be multiple Google results. So in testing, what people are seeing is that SGE takes up a significant amount of real estate at the top of the search results. There's then a couple organic results. And then depending on the query, Google might answer it again below with giving you more information about the subject and displacing everybody that originally would have been through 5 through 8 in that position. That is a brilliant move if you're trying to sell advertising because the advertising hasn't left. The advertising is still there. So I think that it'll definitely increase the competition regarding what you're advertising towards. But also, if they take the SGE model and algorithm into account, I think it's going to be very important that the content you're pointing those ads to also is reflective of the same kind of experience that you're giving people organically. So, right now you have a quality score that impacts how much your ads may cost or how much they may perform. I think that's going to be very important moving forward into SGE as well.
Yeah, and on the advertising side, what Google's envisioning, and right, it's how well it can execute on it, but I think they're going to get there over time, but is how those ads can change in real time as people are asking questions, and then based on the answers and how they continue to search from there, and having ads that can update in real time or new ads that can pop up based on that information. So I think that's where they're trying to go to. It's not all straight money grabs by Google. I think there's things that make sense, and that's where they perform best is when they've done things that have aligned their pocketbooks with things that have helped the users in general. I mean, that's a good business model to go with. To Billy's point, depending on how you look at it, you could say that advertising is going to be a lot more important because it's going to be harder to get some of those top spots. And so that competition could increase, and what you're going to be paying for a click will be more expensive after this gets resolved. I mean, that there's been that inflation over the years anyway. I'd expect that to continue. I think I don't. I'll throw out a number. I don't know if this number's right, but just to give you some sort of idea, like once this launches, or just I would even make this comment in 2024 in general, for you just to tread water, if you are advertising right now on Google, you probably need to budget 10 or 20% more in ad spend, not even to improve, just to tread water with where you're going right now. And I would lean towards the higher end of that spectrum once we see SGE go and people start to panic and go in. Question from Ron. Will Google be able to, I love this one. Will Google be able to know if the content was written with ChatGPT?
So they probably already know. There was a big change over the last year where Google's requirements for creating content for your site was, and I'm paraphrasing, was to create content written by people for people. They have changed that because they also are in the game of creating content created by AI to be content that is created with for people with purpose or with meaning, with expertise, one of those. They know that content has been created by AI and they expect that it's not going to go away, that is only going to get more and more part of everyday life, not only written content, but created in images and photography and videos. All of those things are going to become part of your everyday life in a massive way moving forward. They're going to become a massive part of how everyone's websites are built and how everyone's websites are written. What they're looking for is, have humans augmented that content? And the human that augmented that content, do they have expertise? Did they review that So we're not just turning out something that was created by AI that could be full of hallucinations and full of information that's not real. But did someone actually take the time to review that, and what are their credentials? So that's where authority comes into play. They know you're creating content with AI, but what matters is, can they tell if someone actually took a look at that content and reviewed it? And I believe that that is a big direction that the algorithm is going in.
Yeah. So to that point, like there have been tests, Billy, that you've shown me where people have just thrown out tons and tons of content that wasn't augmented by humans, and it worked well for a little bit, and then had a massive crash, and then might pick up a bit or whatnot. But if you just think again about the user experience, you all have played around with AI for writing. You might have done a lot with it. It kind of sucks when you just use it and you're not augmenting, you're not updating it based on it. Now, if you get really good with using, phrases in vogue in this space, prompt engineering, where you're asking better and better questions and you're driving further down, then certainly you can get better with it. But still, even at that point, it needs to be updated. It needs to be changed based on your expertise in that area. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
So not to keep going on this, but
Yeah.
also, why is your content interesting? You can create content with AI, but so can everybody else. So what sets it apart from your competitors? What makes it more fascinating? Why would Google care about it? This kind of thing.
Yeah, and thank you. And Billy, I'll take a break for a second again, just to make one more pitch. On the screen, you're seeing this information if you want to sign up. Happy to do an audit of your website from an SEO perspective, and specifically from an SGE perspective, and give you feedback on the call with what we're seeing, how well we think you are prepared for this. Simply click on or snap a photo of that QR code, or you can visit directly that link that's at the bottom. Billy, I just want to thank you for this. I don't see many webinars where roughly 25 minutes, 28 minutes of really rock solid, awesome content, and then 30 plus minutes of questions. And I love that we broke it up like this so people could ask their questions. I think that's where they get a lot of value, because it applies not just to the person asking the question, but to the whole room. It looks like we have time for one final question. And this goes back to an earlier question that we had related to the cleanup question, or the cleanup discussion that we're having. Um, it's giving more information. It's news sports. So it's
Mm.
everyday news and articles posted about different leagues. So in that case, would you say redirection is the best option, or how would you recommend that person go about things?
New content creation constantly. If there's sports that are updated frequently, you can take a look at what ESPN or the Washington Post are doing regarding baseball. Creating new pieces of content every day about things that happen every day is important. So if you're creating content about the Steelers, and because we live in Pittsburgh, there are things that happen every day. So in theory, you should have content that updates every day. Don't delete the old stuff. Don't get rid of it. Just say, for up-to-date information about the Steelers, click here, and it's just the newest Steelers article. But that historical amount of content you've created there builds up also your authority. You've created lots of stuff about one subject. Google has crawled it. It understands you know what you're talking about. Keep that stuff. Don't get rid of it. Just add more.
And contrary to belief of many sports stations in town, you are allowed to talk about things other than the quarterback battle in Pittsburgh. Billy, thank you very much. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time. Thank you to all the attendees for joining. We really appreciate everything. If you have any follow-up questions, please reach out. Happy to talk with you on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you. So thank you. Go Chiefs indeed, or 49ers. Whoever you're rooting for, we hope your team wins in the Super Bowl this weekend, or in 2 weekends. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. We'll talk with you soon.